So today I'm going to be reading Atomic Habits. I'm going to finish the book. Yep. Yeah, let's get to it. There we go. Alright. I'm starting on page 202. Yeah. Furthermore, it's not always about what happens during the workout. It's about being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. It's easy to train when you feel good, but it's crucial to show up when you don't feel like it. Even if you do less than you hope, going to the gym for 5 minutes a day may not improve your performance, but it reaffirms your identity. The all or nothing cycle of behavior change is just one pitfall that can derail your habits. Another potential danger, especially if you're using a habit tracker, is measuring the wrong thing. Knowing when and when not to track a habit. Say you're running a restaurant and you want to know if the chef is doing a good job. One way to measure success is to track how many customers pay for each meal a day. If more customers come in, the food must be good. If fewer customers come in, something must be wrong. However, this one measurement, daily revenue, only gives a limited picture of what's really going on. Just because someone pays for a meal doesn't mean they enjoy the meal. Even dissatisfied customers are unlikely to dine and dash. In fact, if you're only measuring revenue, the food might be getting worse, but you're making up for it with the marketing or discounts or some other method. Instead, it may be more effective to track how many customers finish their meal, or perhaps the percentage of customers who leave a generous tip. The dark side of tracking particular behaviors is that we become driven by the number rather than the purpose behind it. If your success is measured by quarterly earnings, you will optimize sales, revenue, and accounting for quarterly earnings. If your success is measured by a lower number on the scale, you will optimize for a lower number on the scale, even if that means embracing crash diets, juice cleanses, and fat loss pills. The human mind wants to win whatever game is being played. This pitfall is evident in many areas of life. We focus on working long hours instead of getting meaningful work done. We care more about getting 10,000 steps than we do about being healthy. We teach for standardized tests instead of emphasizing learning, curiosity, and critical thinking. In short, we optimize for what we measure, When we choose the wrong measurement, we get the wrong behavior. This is sometimes referred to as Goodhart's Law, named after economist Charles Goodhart. The principle states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Measurement is only useful when it guides you and adds context to a larger picture, not when it consumes you. Each number is simply one piece of feedback in the overall system. In our data-driven world, we tend to overvalue numbers and undervalue anything ephemeral, soft, and difficult to quantify. We mistakenly think the factors that we measure are the only factors that exist. But just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. And just because you can't measure something doesn't mean it's not important at all. All of this to say, it's crucial to keep habit tracking in its proper place. It can feel satisfying to record a habit and track your progress, but the measurement is not the only thing that matters. Oh yeah, I'm fasting, by the way, so I haven't drunk any water or ate any food. Furthermore, there are many things to measure progress, and sometimes it helps to shift your focus to something entirely different. This is why non-scale victories can be effective for weight loss. The number on the scale may be stubborn, so if you focus solely on the number, your motivation will sag. But you may notice that your skin looks way better, or you wake up earlier, or your sex drive got a boost. All of these are valid ways to track your improvement. If you're not feeling motivated by the number on the scale, perhaps it's time to focus on a different measurement, one that gives you more signals of progress. No matter how you measure your improvement, habit tracking offers a simple way to make your habits more satisfying. Each measurement provides a little bit of evidence that you're moving in the right direction and a brief moment of immediate pleasure for a job well done. Chapter summary. There we go. Yeah, one of the most satisfying feelings is feeling of making progress. A habit tracker is a simple way to measure whether you did a habit, like marking an X on a calendar. Habit trackers, and other visual forms of measurement can make your habits satisfying by providing clear evidence of your progress. Don't break the chain. Try to keep your habit streak alive. Never miss twice. If you miss one day, try to get back on track as quickly as possible. Just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. Number 17, chapter 17. How can an accountability partner change everything? After serving as a pilot in World War II, Roger Fisher attended Harvard Law School and spent 34 years specializing in negotiation and conflict management. He co-founded the Harvard Negotiation Project and worked on with numerous countries and world leaders on peace resolution, hostage crisis, and diplomatic compromises. But it was in the 1970s and 1980s as a threat of nuclear war escalated, that Fisher developed perhaps his most interesting idea. At the time, Fisher was focused on designing strategies that could prevent nuclear war. He had noticed a troubling fact. Any sitting president would have access to launch codes that could kill millions of people, but would never actually see anyone die because he would always be thousands of miles away. My suggestion was quite simple, he wrote in 1981. Put that nuclear code number in a little capsule, and then implant that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big, heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If the president ever wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he could do so would be for him first, with his own hands, to kill one human being. The president says, "George, I'm sorry, but tens of millions must die." He has to look someone and realize what death is, what an innocent death is. Blood on the White House carpet. It's reality brought home. Pretty good. When I suggested this to friends in the Pentagon, they said, "My God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button." Okay. Throughout our discussion of the fourth law, behavior change, we have covered the importance of making good habits immediately satisfying. Fisher's proposal is an inversion of the fourth law: make it immediately unsatisfying. Just as we are more likely to repeat an experience when the ending is satisfying, we are more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. Pain is an effective teacher. If a failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. The more immediate and more costly a mistake is, the faster you will learn from it. A threat of a bad review forces a plumber to be good at his job. The possibility of a customer never returning makes restaurants create better food. The cost of cutting the wrong blood vessel makes a surgeon master human anatomy and cut carefully next time. When the consequences are severe, people learn quickly. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. If you want to prevent bad habits and eliminate unhealthy behaviors, then adding an instant cost to the action is a great way to reduce their odds. We repeat bad habits because they serve us in some way, and that makes them hard to abandon. The best way I know how to overcome this predicament is to increase the speed of the punishment associated with the behavior. There can't be a gap between the action and the consequences, right? As soon as actions incur, an immediate consequence behavior begins to change. Customers pay their bills on time when they are charged a late fee. Students show up to class when their grades are linked. There we go. When the grades are linked to attendance, we jump through a lot of hoops to avoid a little bit of immediate pain. There is, of course, a limit to this. If you're going to try to rely on punishment to change behavior, then the strength of the punishment must match the relative strength of the behavior it is trying to correct. To be productive, the cost of procrastination must be greater than the cost of exercise. Getting fined for smoking in a restaurant or failing to recycle adds consequence to an action. Behavior only shifts if the punishment is painful enough and reliably enforced. In general, the more local, tangible, concrete, and immediate the consequence, the more likely it is to influence individual behavior. The more global, intangible, vague, and delayed the consequence, the less likely it is to influence individual behavior. Thankfully, there's a straightforward way to add an immediate cost to any bad habit. Create a habit contract. The habit contract. The first seatbelt law took place in New York on December 1st, 1984. At the time, just 14% of the people in the United States regularly wore a seatbelt. But that was all about to change. Within 5 years, over half the nation had seatbelt laws. Today, wearing a seatbelt is enforceable by law in 49 different states. 49 of the 50 states. And it's not just a legislation. The number of people wearing seatbelts has changed dramatically as well. In 2016, over 88% of the Americans buckled up each time they got in a car. In just over 30 years, there was a complete reversal in the habits of millions of people. Laws and regulations are an example of how a government can change our habits by creating a social contract. As a society, we collectively agreed to abide by certain rules and enforce them as a group. Whenever a new piece of legislation impacts a behavior, seatbelt laws, banning smoking inside restaurants, mandatory recycling, it is an example of a social contract shaping our habits. The group agrees to act in a certain way, and if you don't follow along, you'll be punished. Just as governments use laws to hold citizens accountable, you can create a habit contract to hold yourself accountable. A habit contract is a verbal or written agreement in which you state your commitment to a particular habit and the punishment that will occur if you don't follow through. Then you would find one or two people to act as your accountability partners and sign off on the contract with you. Brian Harris, an entrepreneur. Let me see. Brian Harris, an entrepreneur from Nashville, Tennessee, was the first person I saw put this strategy into action. Shortly after the birth of his son, Harris realized that he wanted to shed a few pounds. He wrote up a habit contract between himself and his wife and his personal trainer. The first version said Brian's number one objective for Q1 of 2017 is to start eating correctly again so he feels better, looks better, and is able to hit his long-term goal of 200 pounds at 10% body fat. Below that statement, Harris laid out a roadmap for achieving his ideal outcome. Phase number 1, get back to a strict low-carb diet in Q1. Phase number 2, start a strict macronutrient tracking program in Q2. Phase number 3, refine and maintain the details of his diet and workout program in Q3. Finally, he wrote out each of the daily habits that would get him into his goal. For example, write down all the food that he consumes daily and weigh himself each day. And then he listed the punishment if he failed. If Brian doesn't do these two items, then the following consequences will be enforced. He will have to dress up each workday and each Sunday morning for the rest of the quarter. Dress up is defined as not wearing jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, or shorts. He will also give Joey, his trainer, $200 to use as he sees fit if he misses one day of logging food. Right. Okay. At the bottom of the page, Harris and his wife and his trainer all signed the contract. My initial reaction was that the contract like this seemed overly formal and unnecessary, especially the signatures, but Harris convinced me that signing the contract was an indication of seriousness. Anytime I skip this part, he said, I start slacking almost immediately. 3 months later, after hitting his targets for Q1, Harris upgraded his goals. The consequences escalated too. If he missed his carbohydrate and protein targets, he had to pay his trainer $100. And if he failed to weigh himself, he would have to give his wife $500 to use as she saw fit. Perhaps most painfully, if he forgot to run sprints, he had to dress up for work each day, every day, and wear an Alabama hat for the rest of the quarter, and the bitter arrival of his beloved Auburn team. The strategy worked, with his wife and trainer acting as accountability partners, and with the habit contract clarifying exactly what to do each day, Harris lost the weight. To make bad habits, unsatisfying, your best option is to make them painful in the moment. Creating a habit contract is a straightforward way to exactly do that. Even if you don't want to create a full-blown habit contract, simply having an accountability partner is useful. The comedian Margaret Cho writes a joke or song every day. She does the song a day challenge with a friend, which helps them both stay accountable. Knowing that someone is watching can be a powerful motivator. You're less likely to procrastinate or give up because there is an immediate cost. If you don't follow through, perhaps they'll see you as untrustworthy or lazy. Suddenly, you are not only failing to uphold your promises to yourself, but you're also failing to uphold promises to others. You can even automate this process. Thomas Flank, an entrepreneur in Boulder, Colorado, wakes up at 5:55 a.m. each morning, and if he doesn't, he has a tweet automatically scheduled that say it's 6:10 and I'm not up because I'm lazy. Reply to this for $5 via PayPal, limit 5. Assuming my alarm didn't malfunction. We are always trying to present our best selves to the world. We comb our hair and brush our teeth and dress ourselves carefully because we know these habits are likely to get a positive reaction. We want to get good grades and graduate from top schools to impress potential employers and mates and our friends and family. We care about the opinions of those around us because it helps if others like us. This is precisely why getting an accountability partner or signing a habit contract can work so well. Chapter summary. The inversion of the fourth law of behavior change is make it unsatisfying. We are less likely to repeat a bad habit if it's painful or unsatisfying. An accountability partner can create immediate cost to inaction. We care deeply about what others think of us, and we do not want others to have a lesser opinion of us. A habit contract can be used to add social cost to any behavior. It makes the cost of violating your promises public and painful. Knowing that someone else is watching you can be a powerful motivator. Do I read all this? I'm only 10 pages. How to create a good habit. Make it happen. I'm not going to read this. It's just a bunch of this stuff. We're good. Advanced tactics. How to go from being merely good to being truly great. Okay. 18. The truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. Many people are familiar with Michael Phelps, who is widely considered to be one of the greatest athletes in history. Phelps has won more Olympic medals, not only than any swimmer, but also more than any Olympian in any sport. Fewer people know the name Hicham El Guerrouj, but he was a fantastic athlete in his own right. El Guerrouj is a Moroccan runner who holds 2 Olympic gold medals and is one of the greatest middle distance runners of all time. For many years, he held the world record in the mile, 1500-meter, and 2000-meter races. At the Olympic Games in Athens, Greece in 2004, he won gold in 1500-meter and 5000-meter races. These two athletes were widely different in many ways. For starters, one competed on land and the other in water. But most notably, they differ significantly in height. El Guerrouj is 5 feet 9 inches tall. Phelps is 6 feet 4 inches tall. Despite this 7-inch difference in height, the two men are identical in one respect. Michael Phelps and Hicham El Guerrouj wear the same length inseam on their pants. How is this possible? Phelps has relatively short legs for his height, a very long torso, a perfect build for swimming. El Guerrouj has incredibly long legs and a short upper body, an ideal frame for long-distance running. Now imagine if these world-class athletes were to switch sports. Given his remarkable athleticism, could Michael Phelps become an Olympic caliber distance runner with enough training? It's unlikely. At peak fitness, Phelps weighed 194 pounds, which is 52% heavier than El Guerrouj, who completed an ultralight 128 pounds. Taller runners are heavier runners, and every extra pound is a curse when it comes to distance running. Against elite competition, Phelps would be doomed from the start. Similarly, El Gourouj might be one of the best runners in history, but it's doubtful he would ever qualify for the Olympics as a swimmer. Since 1976, the average height of Olympic gold medalists in the men's 1,500 meter is 5 feet 10 inches. In comparison, the average height of Olympic gold medalists in the men's 1,000 meter freestyle swim is 6 feet 4 inches. Swimmers tend to be tall and have long backs and arms, which is ideal for pulling through the water. El Gourouj would be at a severe disadvantage before he ever touched the pool. The secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. This is just as true with habit change as it is with sports and business. Habits are easier to perform and more satisfying to stick with when they align with your natural inclinations and abilities. Like Michael Phelps in a pool or Haikam El Gourouj on the track. You want to play a game where the odds are in your favor. Embracing this strategy requires the acceptance of the simple truth that people are born with different abilities. Some people don't like to discuss this fact. On the surface, your genes seem to be fixed, and it's no fun to talk about things you cannot control. Plus, phrases like biological determinism makes it sound like certain individuals destined for success and others doomed to failure. But this is a short-sighted view of the influence of genes on behavior. The strength of genetics is also their weakness. Genes cannot be easily changed, which means they provide a powerful advantage in unfavorable circumstances and a serious disadvantage in unfavorable circumstances. If you want to dunk a basketball, being 7 feet tall is very useful. If you want to perform a gymnastics routine, being 7 feet tall is a great hindrance. Our environment determines the suitability of our genes and the utility of our natural talents. When our environment changes, so do the qualities that determine success. This is true not just for physical characteristics, but for mental ones as well. I'm smart if you ask me about habits and human behavior, not so much when it comes to knitting, rocket propulsion, or guitar chords. So much when it comes I need water. Competence is highly dependent on context. The people at the top of any competitive field are not only well trained, but they're also well suited to the task. And this is why, if you want it to be truly great, selecting the right place to focus is crucial. In short, genes do not determine your destiny, they determine your areas of opportunity. As physician Gabriel Maté notes, genes are predisposed, but they do not predetermine. The areas where you are genetically predisposed to success are the areas where habits are more likely to be satisfying. The key to direct your effort toward areas that both excite you and match your natural skills to align your ambition with your ability. The obvious question is, how do I figure out where the odds are in my favor? How do I identify the opportunities and habits that are right for me? The first place we will look for an answer is by understanding your personality. My stomach hurts. How much more do I have? Not that much to go. How your personality influences your habits. I'm going to go super duper fast. Now, ready? How your personality influences your habits. Your genes are operating beneath the surface of every habit, indeed, beneath the surface of every behavior. Genes have been shown to influence everything from the numbers of hours you spend watching television, to your likelihood to marry or divorce, to your tendency to get addicted to drugs, alcohol, or nicotine. There's a strong genetic component to how obedient or rebellious you are when facing an authority, how vulnerable or resistant you are to stressful events, how proactive or reactive you tend to be, and even how captivated or bored you feel during sensory experiences, like attending a concert. As Robert Plowman, a behavioral genetics at King's College in London, told me, it is now at the point where we have stopped testing to see if the traits have a genetic component, because we literally can't find a single one that isn't influenced by our genes. Bundled together, your unique cluster of genetic traits predispose you to a particular personality. If your personality is the set of characteristics that is consistent from situation to situation, the most proven scientific analysis of personality traits is known as a Big Five. which breaks them down into 5 spectrums of behavior. Number 1, openness to experience, from curious and attentive on one end to cautious and consistent on the other. I'm not. Organized and efficient to easygoing and spontaneous. Extroversion, outgoing and energetic to solitary and reserved. You likely know them as extroverts versus introverts. Agreeables, friendly and compassionate to challenging and detached. Neuroticism, anxious and sensitive to confident, calm, and stable. All 5 characteristics have biological underpins. Extroversion, for instance, can be tracked from birth. If scientists play a loud noise in the nursing ward, some baby turn towards it, while others turn away. When the researchers tracked these children through life, they found that the babies who turned toward the music were more likely to grow up to be extroverts. Those who turned away were more likely to become introverts. People who are high in agreeableness are kind of considerate and warm. They also tend to have higher natural oxytocin levels, a hormone that plays an important role in social bonding, increases feelings of trust, and can act as a natural antidepressant. You can easily imagine how someone with more oxytocin might be inclined to build habits like writing thank you notes or organizing social events. As a third example, consider neuroticism, which is a personality trait all people possess to various degrees. People who are high in neuroticism tend to be anxious and worry more than others. This trait has been linked to hypersensitivity of the amygdala, a portion of the brain responsible for noticing threats. In other words, people are more sensitive to negative cues in the environment than they are to score high on neuroticism. Our habits are not solely determined on personalities, but there is no doubt that our genes nudge us in a certain direction. Our deeply rooted preferences make certain behaviors easier for some people than for others. You don't have to apologize for these differences or feel guilty about them, but you do have to work for them. A person who scores lower on conscientiousness, for example, will be less likely to be orderly by nature and may need to rely more heavily on environment designed to stick with good habits. As a reminder for the less conscientious readers among us, environment design is a strategy we discuss in chapters 6 and 12. The takeaway is that you should build habits that work for your personality. People can get ripped working out like a bodybuilder, but if you prefer rock climbing or cycling or rowing, then shape your exercise habit around your interests. If your friend follows a low-carb diet, but you find that low-fat works for you, then the more power to you. If you want to read more, don't be embarrassed if you prefer steamy romance novels over nonfiction. Steamy romance. Read whatever fascinates you. You don't have to build the habits everyone tells you to build. Choose the habit that best suits you, not the one that is most popular. There is a version of every habit that can bring you joy and satisfaction. Find it. Habits need to be enjoyable if they're going to stick. This is the core idea behind the 4th law. Tailoring your habits to your personality is a good start, but this is not the end of the story. Let's turn our attention to finding and designing situations where you're at a natural advantage. How to find a game where the odds are in your favor. Learning to play a game where the odds are in your favor is critical for maintaining motivation and feeling successful. In theory, you can enjoy almost anything. In practice, you are more likely to enjoy things that come easily to you. People who are talented in a particular area tend to be more competent at that task, and then praised for doing a good job. They stay energized because they're making progress where others have failed, and because they get rewarded with better pay and bigger opportunities, which not only makes them happier, but also propels them to produce even higher quality work. It's a virtuous cycle. Pick the right habit and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habit and life is a struggle. How do you pick the right habit? The first step is something we covered in the 3rd law, make it easy. In many cases, when people pick the wrong habit, it simply means that they picked the habit that was too difficult. When a habit is easy, you're more likely to be successful. When you're successful, the more likely you're to feel satisfied. However, there is another level to consider in the long run. If you continue to advance and improve any area can become challenging. At some point, you need to make sure you're playing the right game for your skill set. How do you figure that one out? The most common approach is trial and error. Of course, there's a problem with this strategy. Life is short. You don't have time to try every career date, every eligible bachelor, or play every musical instrument. Thankfully, there's an effective way to manage this conundrum, and it is known as the explore-exploit trade-off. Explore-exploit trade-off. In the beginning of a new activity, there should be a period of exploration. In relationships, it's called dating. In college, it's called liberal arts. In business, it's called split testing. The goal is to try out many possibilities. Researchers research a broad range of ideas and cast a wide net. After this initial period of exploration, shift your focus to the best solution you found, but keep experimenting occasionally. The more proper balance depends on whether you're winning or losing. If your proper balance depends on whether you're winning or if you're currently winning, you exploit. If you're currently losing, you continue to explore. In the long run, it is probably more effective to work on this strategy that seems to deliver the best results about 80 to 90% of the time, and keep exploring with the remaining 10 to 20%. Google famously asked employees to spend 80% of the work week on their official job and 20% on projects of their choice, which had led to the creation of blockbuster products like AdWords and Gmail. The optimal approach also depends on how much time you have. If you have a lot of time, like someone at the beginning of their career, it makes more sense to explore, because once you find the right thing, you still have a good amount of time to exploit it. If you're pressed for time, say as you come up for the deadline for a project, you should implement the best solution you've found so far and get some results. 30 minutes. I got 30 more minutes to go. Okay. As you explore different options, there are a series of questions you can ask yourself to continually narrow in on the habits and areas that will be most satisfying to you. What feels like fun to me but work to others? The mark of whether you are made for a task is not whether you love it, but whether you can handle the pain of the task easier than most people. When are you enjoying yourself while other people are complaining? The work that hurts you less than it hurts others is a work you were made to do. What makes you lose track of time? Flow state. Flow is a mental state you enter when you are focused on the task at hand, that the rest of the world fades away. This blend of happiness and peak performance is what athletes and performers experience when they are in the zone. It is nearly impossible to experience a flow state and not find the task satisfying, at least to some degree. Where do I get greater returns than the average person? We're continually comparing ourselves to those around us, and the behavior is more likely to be satisfying when the comparison is in our behavior. When I started writing at jamesclear.com, my email list grew very quickly. I wasn't quite sure what I was doing well, but I knew the results seemed to be coming faster for me than for some of my colleagues, which motivated me to keep writing. What comes naturally to me? For just a moment, ignore what you've been taught. Ignore what society has told you. Ignore what others expect of you. Look inside of yourself and ask, what feels natural to me? What have I felt? When have I felt alive? When have I felt the real me? No internal judgments or people-pleasing, no second-guessing, no self-criticism, just feelings of engagement and enjoyment. Whenever you feel authentic and genuine, you are headed in the right direction. To be honest, some of this process is just luck. Michael Phelps and Kamel Garoj were lucky to be born with a rare set of abilities that are highly valued by society and to be placed in the ideal environment for those abilities. We all have limited time on this planet, and the truly great among us are ones who not only work hard but also have a good fortune to be exposed to opportunities that favor us. But what if you don't want to leave it up to luck? If you can't find a game where the odds are stacked in your favor, create one. Scott Adams, a cartoonist behind Dilbert, says everyone has at least a few areas in which they could be in the top 25% with some effort. In my case, I can draw better than most people, but I'm hardly an artist, and I'm not any funnier than the average stand-up comedian who never takes it big. makes it big, and I'm funnier than most people. The magic is that a few people can draw well and write jokes. It's the combination of the two that makes what I do so rare. And when you add in my business background, suddenly I had the topic that a few cartoonists could hope to understand without living it. When you can't win by being better, then you can win by being different. By combining your skills and reduce the level of competition, which makes it easier to stand out, you can shortcut the need for generic advantage or for years of practice. By rewriting the rules, a good player works hard to win the game everyone else is playing. A great player creates a new game that favors their strengths and avoids their weaknesses. In college, I designed my own major, biomechanics, which was a combination of physics, chemistry, and biology and anatomy. I wasn't smart enough to stand out among the top physicians or biology majors, so I created my own game. And because it suited me, I was only taking the courses I was interested in. Studying felt like less of a chore. It was also easier to avoid the trap of comparing myself to everyone else. After all, nobody else was taking the same combinations of classes, so who could say if they were better or worse? Specialization is a powerful way to overcome the accident of bad genetics. The more you master a specific skill, the harder it is for others to compete with you. Many bodybuilders are stronger than the average arm wrestler, but even a massive bodybuilder may lose at an arm wrestling because the arm wrestling champ has a very specific strength. Even if you're not the most naturally gifted, you can often win by being the best in a very narrow category. Boiling water will soften up a potato but harden an egg. You can't control whether you're a potato or an egg, but you can decide to play a game where it's better to be hard or soft. If you can find a more favorable environment, you can transform the situation from one where the odds are against you to one where they are in your favor. How to get the most out of your genes. Our genes do eliminate the need for hard work. They do not eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. Once we realize our strengths, we know where to spend our time and energy. We know which types of opportunities to look for and which types of challenges to avoid. The better we understand our nature, the better our strategy can be. Biological differences matter. Even so, it's more productive to focus on whether you're fulfilling your own potential than comparing yourself to someone else. The fact that you have a natural limit to any specific ability has nothing to do with whether you are reaching the ceiling of your capabilities. People get so caught up in the fact that they have limits that they rarely exert the effort required to get close to them. Furthermore, genes can't make you successful if you're not doing the work. Yes, it's possible to get ripped Yes, it's possible that the ripped trainer at the gym has better genes, but if you haven't put in the same reps, it's impossible to say that you have dealt better or worse genetics hand. Until you work hard as those you admire, don't explain away their success as luck. In summary, one of the best ways to ensure your habits remain satisfying over the long run is to pick behaviors that align with your personality and skills. Work hard on the things that come easy. Chapter summary. The secret to maximizing our odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. Pick the right habit and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habit and life is a struggle. Genes cannot be easily changed, which means that they provide powerful advantage in favorable circumstances and serious disadvantage in unfavorable circumstances. Habits are easier when they align with your natural abilities. Choose the habits that best suit you. Play a game that favors your strengths. If you can't find a game that favors you, create one. Genes do not eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. Chapter 19. Can't even take a break. The Goldilocks Rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. In 1955, Disneyland had just opened in Anaheim, California, when a 10-year-old boy walked in and asked for a job. Labor laws were loose back then, and the boy man should land a position selling guidebooks for 50 cents apiece. Within a year, he had transitioned to Disney's Magic Shop, where he learned tricks from the older employees and experimented with jokes and tried out simpler routines on visitors. Soon he discovered that what he loved was not performing magic, but performing in general. He set his sights on becoming a comedian. Beginning in his teenage years, he started performing in little clubs around Los Angeles. The crowds were small and his act was short. He was rarely on stage for more than 5 minutes. Most of the people in the crowd were too busy drinking or talking with friends to pay attention. One night, he literally delivered his stand-up routine in an empty club. It wasn't glamorous work, but there was no doubt he was getting better. His first routines would only last 1 or 2 minutes. By By high school, his material had expanded to include a 5-minute act and a few years later a 10-minute show. At 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes at a time. He had to read 3 poems during the show just to make the routine long enough, but his skills continued to grow in progress. He spent another decade experimenting, adjusting, and practicing. He took a job as a television writer, and gradually he was able to land his own appearances on talk shows. By the mid-1970s, he worked his way into being a regular guest on The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live. Finally, after 15 years of hard work, the young man rose to fame. He toured 60 cities in 63 days, then 62 cities in 80 days, then 85 cities in 90 days. He had 18,695 people attend one show in Ohio. Another 45,000 tickets were sold for his 3-day show in New York. He catapulted to the top of his genre and became one of the most successful comedians of his time. His name is Steve Martin. Martin's story offers a fascinating perspective on what it takes to stick with habits for the long run. How comedy is not for the timid. It is hard to imagine a situation that would strike fear into the hearts of people than performing alone on stage and failing to get a single laugh. And yet Steve Martin faced this fear every week for 18 years. In his words, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Why is it that some people like Martin stick with their habits, whether practicing jokes or drawing cartoons or playing guitar, while most of us struggle to stay motivated? How do we design habits that pull us in rather than the ones that fade away? Scientists have been studying this question for many years. While there's still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire is to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. The human brain loves a challenge, but only if it's within an optimal zone of difficulty. If you love tennis and try to play a serious match against a 4-year-old, you will quickly become bored. It's too easy. You'll win every point. In contrast, if you play a professional tennis player like Roger Federer or Serena Williams, you will quickly lose motivation because this match is too difficult. Now consider playing tennis against someone who is your equal. As the game progresses, you win a few points and you lose a few. You have a good chance of winning, but only if you really try. Your focus narrows distractions away, and you find yourself truly invested in the task at hand. This is a challenge of the manageable difficulty, and it is a prime example of the Goldilocks rule. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation while working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Martin's comedy's career is an excellent example of the Goldilocks rule in practice. Each year he expanded his comedy routine, but only by a minute or two. He was always adding new material, but he was also kept jokes that were guaranteed to get laughs. There were just enough victories to keep him motivated and just enough mistakes to keep him working hard. When you're starting a new habit, it's important to keep the behavior as easy as possible, so you can stick with it even when the conditions aren't perfect. This is an idea we covered in detail while discussing the third law of behavior change. Once a habit has been established, however, it's important to continue to advance in small ways. These little improvements and new challenges keep you engaged. Then there's a figure of the Goldilocks rule. A flow state is the experience of being in the zone and fully immersed in an activity. Scientists have tried to quantify this feeling. They found to achieve the state of flow, it must be roughly 4% beyond your current ability. In real life, it's typically not feasible. Of the Goldilocks rule remains working on challenges to manage manageable difficulties. Something of the perimeter of your ability seems crucial or for maintaining motivation. Improvement requires a delicate balance. You need to regularly research for challenges that push you to the edge while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. Behaviors need to remain novel in order for them to stay attractive and satisfying. Without variety, we get bored, and boredom is perhaps the greatest villain on the quest for self-improvement. How to stay focused when you get bored working on your goals. After my baseball career ended, I was looking for a new sport. I joined a weightlifting team, and one day an elite coach visited our gym. He had worked with thousands of athletes during his long career, including a few Olympians. I introduced myself, and we began talking about the process of improvement. What was the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? I asked. What do the really successful people do that most don't? He mentioned the factors that you might expect: genetics, luck, talent, but then he said something I wasn't expecting. At some point, it comes down to those who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over. His answer surprised me because it was a different way of thinking about the work ethic. People talk about getting amped up to work on their goals, whether it's business or sports or art. You hear people say things like, it all comes down to passion, or you have to really want it. As a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus or motivation because we think that successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this coach was saying that really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. This difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feelings of boredom. Mastery requires practice, but the more you practice something, the more boring and routine it becomes. Once the beginner gains have been made and we learn to expect, our interests start to fade. Sometimes it happens even faster than that. All you have to do is hit the gym a few times a day in a row to publish a couple of blog posts, one on time, and letting one day slip up doesn't feel like much. Things are going well. It's easy to rationalize taking a day off because you're in a good place. The greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. We get bored with the habits because they stop delighting us. The outcome becomes expected as our habits become ordinary. We start derailing our progress to seek novelty. Perhaps this is why we get caught up in a never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. As Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are working well wish for a change as much as those who are working badly. I'm dizzy. I'm so dizzy. Perhaps this is why many of the habit-forming products are those that provide continuous forms of novelty. Video games provide visual novelty. Porn provides sexual novelty. Junk food provides culinary novelty. Each of these experiences offer continual elements of surprise. In psychology, this is known as variable reward. Slot machines are one of the most common real-world examples. A gambler hits a jackpot every now and then, but not at any predictable interval. The pace of the reward varies. This variance leads to the greatest spike of dopamine, enhances visual memory recall, and accelerates habit formation. Variable rewards won't create a craving. That is, you can't take a reward people are uninterested, give it to them at a variable interval, and hope it will change their mind. But they're a powerful way to amplify the cravings we already experience because they reduce boredom. The sweet spot of desire, of course, 50-50 split between our success and failure. Half the time you get what you want, half the time you don't get what you want. You just need enough winning to experience satisfaction, just enough wanting to experience desire. This is one of the benefits of following the Goldilocks rule. If you're already interested in a habit, working on challenges of manageable difficulty is a good way to keep things interesting. Of course, not all habits have variable reward component, and you won't want them to. If Google only delivered useful search results, some of the time I would switch to a competitor very quickly. If Uber only picked up half my trips, I would doubt I'd be using that service much longer. But if I flossed my teeth each night and only sometimes it ended up with a clean mouth, I think I'd skip it. Variable rewards or not, no habit will stay interesting forever. At some point, everyone faces the same challenges on the journey or self-improvement. You have to fall in love with boredom. We all have goals that we like to achieve and dreams that we would like to fulfill. But it doesn't matter what you are trying to become better at. If you only do the work when it's convenient or exciting, then you'll never be consistent enough to achieve remarkable results. I can guarantee you that if you manage to start a habit and keep sticking to it, there will be days when you feel like quitting. When you start a business, there will be days you don't feel like showing up. When you're at the gym, there will be sets you don't feel like finishing. When it's time to write, there will be days you don't feel like typing. But stepping up when it's annoying or painful or draining to do so. That's what makes the difference between a professional and an amateur. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what is important to them, and they work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off by by the urgencies of life. David Kane, an author and meditation teacher, encourages his students to avoid being fair-weather meditators. Similarly, you don't want to be a fair-weather athlete or a fair-weather writer or a fair-weather anything. You want a habit. When a habit is truly important to you, you have to be willing to stick to it in any mood. Professionals take actions even when the mood isn't right. They might not enjoy it, but they will find a way to put the reps in. There have been a lot of sets that I haven't felt like finishing, but I never regretted doing the workout. There have been a lot of articles I haven't felt like writing, but I never regretted publishing on schedule. There have been a lot of days I felt like relaxing, but I've never regretted showing up and working on something that was important to me. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. Chapter summary! The Goldilocks rule states that the human experiences motivation when working on the tasks that are right on an edge of their current abilities. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. As habits become routine, they become less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. It's the ability to keep going when the work isn't exciting that makes the difference. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs life get in the way. Last. Oh my god, guys. It's the last chapter. Yay. Last chapter, dude. My face is so asymmetrical. I'm so chopped. It's okay. Not that chopped. It's okay. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. Habits create the foundation for mastery. In chess, it is only after the basic movements of the pieces have become automatic to the player that can focus on the next level of the game. Each chunk of information that is memorized opens up the mental space for more effortful thinking. This is true for any endeavor. When you know the simple movements so well that you can perform them without thinking, you are free to pay attention to more advanced details. In this way, habits are the backbone of any pursuit of excellence. However, the benefits of habits come at a cost. At first, each repetition develops fluency, speed, and skill, but then as a habit becomes automatic, you become less sensitive to the feedback. You fall into mindless repetition. It becomes easier to let mistakes slide. When you can do it good enough on autopilot, you stop thinking about it and how to do it better. The upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside of habits is that you get used to doing things a certain way and stop paying attention to little errors. You assume you're not getting any better because you're gaining experience. In reality, you're merely reinforcing your current habits, not improving them. In fact, some research has shown that once a skill had been mastered, there's usually a slight decline in performance over time. Usually this minor dip in performance is no cause for worry. You don't need a system to continually improve on how well you brush your teeth or tie your shoes, or make your morning cup of tea. With habits like these, good enough is usually good enough. The less energy you spend on trivial choices, the more you can spend on what really matters. However, when you want to maximize your potential and achieve elite levels of performance, you need a more nuanced approach. You need a ow, my throat hurts. I didn't even drink any water. You can't repeat the same things blindly and expect to become exceptional. Habits are necessary but not sufficient for mastery. What you need is a combination of automatic habits and deliberate practice. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. To become great, certain skills do need to become automatic. Basketball players need to be able to dribble without thinking before they can move on to mastering layups with their non-dominant hand. Surgeons need to repeat the first incision so many times they could do it with their eyes closed, so they can focus on the hundreds of variables that arise during surgery. But after one habit has been mastered, you have to return on the effortful part of work and begin building the next habit. Mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success, repeating it until you have internalized the skill, and then usually this new habit as the foundation to advance to the next frontier of your development. Old tasks become easier and the second time around, But it doesn't get easier overall because now you're pouring your energy into the next challenge. Each habit unlocks the next level of performance. It's an endless cycle. Although habits are powerful, what you need is a way to remain conscious of your performance over time, so you can continue to. By the way, this is the graph. Yep. Almost done. Almost there. Refine and improve it. This is precisely at the moment when you begin to feel that you've mastered a skill, right when things are starting to feel automatic and you're becoming comfortable, that you must avoid slipping into the trap of complacency. The solution? Establish a system for reflection and review. How to review your habits and make adjustments. In 1986, the Los Angeles Lakers had one of the most talented basketball players ever assembled, but they are rarely remembered that way. The team started in 1985 to 1986 NBA season with an outstanding 29-5 record. The pundits were saying that we might be the best team in the history of basketball. Head coach Pat Riley said after the season, surprisingly, the Lakers stumbled in the 1986 playoff and suffered a season-ending defeat in the Western Conference Finals. The best team in the history of basketball didn't even play for the NBA championship. After the blow, Riley was tired of hearing how much talent his players had and how much promise his team held. He didn't want to see the flashes of brilliance followed with a gradual fade in performance. He wanted the Lakers to play up their potential night after night. In the summer of 1986, he created a plan to do exactly that after a system what he called Career Best Effort Program for CBE. When players first joined the Lakers, Riley explained, we tracked their basketball statistics all the way back to high school. I call this taking their number. We look for an accurate gauge of what a player can do and then build him into our plan for the team based on the notion that he will maintain and then improve upon his averages. After determining a player's baseline level of performance, Riley added up a key setup. He asked each player to improve their output by at least 1% over the course of the season. If they succeeded, it would be a CBE or a career best effort. Similar to the British cycling team that we discussed in Chapter 1, Lakers sought peak performance by getting nearly slightly better each day. Riley was careful to point out that CBE was not merely about the points or statistics, but about giving your best effort spiritually and mentally and physically. Players got credit for allowing an opponent to run into you when you know that a foul can be called against them, diving for loose balls, going after rebounds, whether you're likely to get them or not, helping a teammate when the player he's guarding has surged past him, and other unsung hero deeds. As an example, let's say the Magic Johnson, the Lakers star player at the time, had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in a game. Magic also got credit for unsung hero deed after diving after a loose ball, +1. Finally, he played for a total of 33 minutes in this imaginary game. Positive numbers. 11 plus 8 plus 12 plus 2 plus 1, all up to 34. Then we subtracted 5 turnovers. 34 minus 5, we get 29. Finally, we got divide 29 by 33. Minutes played is 29 divided by 33. It's 87.9%. Magic's CBE number here would be 879. This number was calculated for all players' games, and it was the average CPE that a player was asked to improve by 1% over the season. Riley compared each player's CBE not only the past performances, but also those of other players in the league. As Riley put it, we rank team members alongside league components who play the same position and have similar role definitions. Sports writer Jackie McMullen noted, Riley trumpeted the top performers in the league in the bold lettering on the blackboard each week and measured them against the corresponding players on his own roster. Solid, reliable players generally rated a score in the 600, while elite players scored at least 800. Magic Johnson, who submitted 138 triple-doubles in his career, often scored over 1,000. I need water. It's 3:27 p.m. The Lakers also emphasize year-over-year progress by making historical comparisons of CBE data. Riley said, we stacked the month of November 1986 next to November 227. There we go. The Lakers also emphasize a year-over progress by making historical comparison of CBE data. Riley said we stacked the month of November 1986 next to the November 1985. We showed the players whether they had been doing better or worse than the same point last season. Then we showed them how their performance figures for December 1986 was stacked up against November's. Okay, the Lakers rolled out CBE in October 1986. 8 months later, they were NBA champions. The following year, Pat Riley led his team to another title as the Lakers became the first team in 20 years to win back-to-back NBA championships. Afterward, he said, sustaining an effort is the most important thing for any enterprise. The best way to be successful is to learn how to do things right, and then do them at the same time every time. Same way every time. The CBE program is a prime example of the power of reflection and review. The Lakers were already talented. CBE helped them. Okay. CBE helped them get the most out of what they had and made sure their habits improved rather than declined. Reflection and review enables the long-term improvement of all habits because it makes you aware of your mistakes and helps you consider possible paths for improvement. Without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. We have no process for determining whether we are performing better or worse compared to yesterday. Top performers in all fields engage in various types of reflection and review, and the process doesn't have to be complex. Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge is one of the greatest marathon runners of all time, and an Olympic gold medalist. He still takes notes after every practice in which he reviews for training for the day and searches for areas that can be improved. Similarly, gold medal swimmer Katie Ledecky records her wellness on a scale of 1 to 10 and includes notes in her nutrition and how well she slept. She also records the time posted by other swimmers. At the end of each week, her coach goes over to her notes and adds his thoughts. It's not just athletes either. When comedian Chris Rock preparing fresh material, he will first appear in small nightclubs dozens of times and test hundreds of jokes. He brings a notepad on stage and records which bits go over well and which beat and where he needs to make adjustments. The few killer lines that survive will form the backbone of his new show. I know of executive investors who keep a decision journal in which way they record the major decisions that make each week, why they made them, and what they expect the outcome to be. They review the choices at the end of each month or year to see where they were correct and where they went wrong. Improvement is not about learning habits. It's also about fine-tuning them. Reflection and review ensures that you spend your time on the right things and make course corrections whenever necessary. Like Pat Riley adjusting the efforts of his players on a nightly basis. You don't want to keep practicing a habit if it becomes an infectious. Personally, I employ two primary roles of reflection and review. Each December, I perform an annual review in which I reflect previous year. I tally my habits for the year by counting up how many articles I published, how many workouts I put in, how many places I visited, and more. Then I reflect on my progress, or lack thereof, by answering 3 questions, which are, number 1, what went well this year? Number 2, what didn't go so well this year? Number 3, what did I learn? 6 months later, when summer rolls around, I conduct an integrity report. Like everyone, I make a lot of mistakes. My integrity report helps me realize where I went wrong and what motivates me to get back on course. I use it as a time to revisit my core values and consider whether I've been living in accordance with them. This is when I reflect on my identity and how I can work toward being the type of person I wish to become. My yearly integrity report answers these 3 questions. What are the core values that drive my life and work? How am I living and working with integrity right now? How can I set higher standards in the future? These 2 reports don't take very long, just a few hours per year, but they're crucial periods of refinement. They prevent the gradual slide that happens when I don't pay close attention. They provide an annual reminder to revisit my desired identity and consider how many habits are helping me become the type of person I wish to be. They indicate that when I should upgrade my habits and to take on new challenges, and when I should dial my efforts back and focus on the fundamentals. Reflection can also become a sense of perspective. Daily habits are powerful because of how they compound. By But worrying too much about every detailed daily choice is like looking at yourself in the mirror from an inch away. You can see every imperfection and lose sight of the bigger picture. There is too much feedback. Conversely, never reviewing your habits is like never looking in the mirror. You aren't aware of easy fixable flaws. A spot on your shirt, a bit of food on your teeth. There's too little feedback. Periodic reflection and reviews, like reviewing yourself in the mirror and from a conversational distance. You can be the important changes you should make without losing sight of the bigger picture. You want to view the entire mountain range, not obsess over each peak and valley. Finally, reflection and review offers an ideal time to revisit one of the most important aspects of behavior change: identity. How to break the beliefs that hold you back. In the beginning, repeating a habit is essential to build up evidence of your desired identity as you latch on to the new identity. However, my neck hurts. My neck hurts, dude. As you it's better. As you latch onto the new identity, however, those same beliefs can hold you back from the next level of growth. When working against you, your identity creates a kind of pride that encourages you to deny your weak spots and prevents you from truly growing. This is one of the greatest downsides of building habits. The more scared an idea is to us, that is, the more deeply it is tied to our identity. The more strongly we'll defend it against criticism. You will see in every industry. The school teacher who ignores innovative teaching methods and sticks with her tried and true lesson plans, the veteran manager who's committed to doing things his way, the surgeon who dismisses the ideas of her younger colleagues, the band who produces a mind-blowing first album and then gets stuck in a rut. The tighter we cling to an identity, the harder it is to grow beyond it. The solution is to avoid making any single aspect of your identity an overwhelming portion of who you are. In the words of investor Paul Graham, almost there. Keep your identity small. The more you let a single belief define you, the less capable you are of adapting life when life challenges you. If you tie everything up in being the point guard, at the partner, the firm, or whatever else, then the loss of that facet of your life will wreck you. If you're a vegan and develop a healthy condition that forces you to change your diet, you'll have an identity crisis on your hands. When you cling too tightly to one identity, you become brittle. I don't even know how to read anymore. Lose that one thing and lose yourself. For most of my young life, being an athlete was a major part of my identity. After my baseball career ended, I struggled to find myself. When you spend your whole life defining yourself in one way and that which disappears, who are you now? Military veterans and former entrepreneurs report similar feelings. If your identity is wrapped in a belief like, I'm a great soldier, what happens when your period of service ends? For many business owners, their identity is something along the lines of, I'm the CEO or I'm the founder. If you have spent every waking moment working on your business, how will you feel after you sell the company? The key to mitigating these losses of identity is to redefine yourself, such as that you will get important aspects of your identity even if your particular role changes. I can't wait to play Fortnite. I'm an athlete becomes I'm the type of person who's mentally tough and loves a physical challenge. I'm a great soldier transforms into I'm the type of person who's disciplined, reliable, and great on a team. I'm the CEO translate to I'm the type of person who builds and creates things. When chosen effectively, an identity can be flexible rather than brittle. Like water flowing around an obstacle, your identity works like changing circumstances rather than against them. The following quote from Tao Te Ching encapsulates the ideas perfectly. Men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant. Dead, they are brittle and dry. Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The harder and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. Lao Tzu. Habits deliver numerous benefits, but the downside is that they lock us into previous patterns in thinking and acting, even when the world is shifting around us. Everything is impairment. Life is constantly changing, so you need to periodically check in to see if your old habits and beliefs are still serving you. A lack of self-awareness is poison. Reflection and review is the antidote. Chapter summary. Yeah, last chapter. The upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside is that we stop paying attention to little errors. Habits plus deliberate practice equal mastery. Reflection and review is a process that allows you to remain conscious of your performance over time. The tighter we cling to an identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. Hey, we done it. Now for the conclusion. Conclusion. The secret to results that last. There is an ancient Greek parable known as the Socrates paradox, which talks about the effect. I'm gonna put you up. I'm tired of looking down, so I'm gonna do this. Effect of one small action that can have when repeated enough times. One formulation of the paradox goes as follows. Can one coin make a person rich? If you give a person a pile of 10 coins, you wouldn't claim that he or she is rich. But what if you add another and another and another? And at some point, you will have to admit that no one can be rich unless a coin can make him or so. Well, we can say the same about atomic habits. Can one tiny change transform your life? It's unlikely that you would say so, but what if you made another and another and another? At some point, you will have to admit that your life was transformed by one small change. The holy grail of habit change is not a single 1% improvement, but 1,000 of them. It's a bunch of atomic habits stacking up, each one a fundamental unit of the overall system. In the beginning, small improvements can often seem meaningless because they get washed away by the weight of the system. Just as one coin won't make you rich, one positive change, like meditating for 1 minute or reading one page each day is unlikely to deliver a noticeable difference. Gradually, though, as you continue to a small changes on top of one another, the scales of life start to move. Each improvement is like adding another grain of sand to the positive side of the scale, slowly tilting things in your favor. Eventually, if you stick with it, you hit a tipping point. Suddenly it feels easier to stick with good habits. The weight of the system is working for you rather than against you. Over the course of this book, we looked at dozens of stories of top performers. We heard about Olympic gold medalists, award-winning artists, business leaders, life-saving physicians, and star comedians who have all used the science of small habits to master their craft and vault to the top of their field. Each of the people, teams, and companies we have covered have faced different circumstances, but ultimately progress the same way, through a commitment to tiny, sustainable, unrelenting improvements. Success is not a goal to reach the finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process to refine. In Chapter 1, I said if you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you, the problem is the system, is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again. Not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change. As this book draws to a close, I hope the opposite is true. With the 4 laws of behavior change, you have a set of tools and strategies that you can use to build better systems and shape better habits. Sometimes a habit will be hard to remember, and you'll need to make it obvious. Other times you won't feel like starting, and you need to make it attractive. In many cases, you may find a habit is too difficult and need to make it easy. And sometimes you won't feel like sticking with it, and you'll need to make it satisfying. Behaviors are effortless here. Behaviors are difficult here. Obvious, invisible, attractive, unattractive, easy, hard, satisfying, unattractive. You want to push your good habits toward the left side of the spectrum by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Meanwhile, you want to cluster your bad habits toward the right side, making them invisible, unattractive, hard, and unsatisfying. This is a continuous process. There is no finish line. There is no permanent solution. Whenever you're looking to improve, you can rotate through the 4 laws of behavior change until you find the next bottleneck. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying, round and round, always looking for the next way to get 1% better. The secret to getting results that last is to never stop making improvements. It's remarkable what you can build if you don't stop. It's remarkable the business you can build if you don't stop working. It's remarkable the body you can build if you don't stop training. It's remarkable the knowledge you can build if you don't stop learning. It is remarkable the fortune you can build if you do not stop saving. It's remarkable the friendships you can build if you don't stop caring. Small habits don't add up. They compound. That's the power of atomic habits. Tiny changes. Remarkable results. That's it. That's it. And then it's the appendix. I finished the book. I read it. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe. Oh my god, my throat hurts. I'm so thirsty. But, you know, fast opens in 4 hours. Thank you so much for being with me. Take care.